Well, we're back. Married at First Sight UK, Series 7, Episode 1. Before we start, in regards to my previous video about my predictions, that's totally out the window. I was totally off the mark. We're just going to have to wait and see whether the matchmakers prove me wrong. So anyway, moving on. We started off with the stag and the hen do. And within the first 10 minutes of the series starting, we already know who the biggest diva is. Miss Whitney. She didn't set a good impression on me. Not in the slightest. Then we had her arguing with Jess about, oh God, what was it? About sleeping with their husband on the wedding night. Jess said she would. Miss Diva Whitney said, no, you won't see me doing that. Oh no. She was disgusted. But as Jess says, no, as Whitney said, each to their own. But she said it in a sarcastic way. I know what she was getting at. She wasn't fooling me with that. We already know that there's going to be fireworks with these two. And if I do recall, at the end of that clip, we did see Jess talking to the camera and she called her a bitch. Yes, she called her a bitch. And I'm sorry, I have to agree. We then saw a sort of disagreement, I'm going to say, that took place between Thomas and Jenna. I've got to get used to these names, so bear with me. Thomas and Jenna, all in relation to being walked down the aisle by their parent or parents. Yeah, that didn't go down too well. No. Thomas is a gay man and Jenna is a lesbian. And the two of them, as we saw, have totally different views. I'm sure we're going to see more of them two clashing as the weeks go on. Moving on to the men's stag do. No, sorry, let me rewind. Going back to the women's hen night. What the hell was, is it Cassia, wearing? That cream dress? Her breast outdoors? What the hell was that? That was embarrassing to watch. You couldn't look at her face. Who's looking at her face? All you're seeing is chest, tits outdoors, her breast outdoors, her breast hanging down to her knees, virtually. And you want to get married? Do you think that's acceptable attire as a married woman? Please, somebody tell me. And let's not forget Whitney. Her breast was virtually at her chin. What's going on here? What exactly is going on here? Oh, dear me. It's just so embarrassing. I could feel my blood pressure rising. I just had to take a moment because watching that, I can't talk anymore. Moving on to the stag do. With the men, these guys seem to be getting on. Didn't see any friction between them at all. But that's typical men, to be honest. 9 times out of 10, it's the women that cause the ruckus. And it's the men trying to keep the peace. We did, however, see the main focus of this stag do being focused on PJ, who is the stripper, the dream boy guy. And him talking about how people perceive him, etc., etc. Yeah. I don't know what to say there. Because I'm sure we all do. Is he going to be faithful? If that's the type of job he does, can I really trust him? We all think that. I'm sure a majority of us women do. Anyway, moving on. Then we had George, who was the financial advisor. He was 40. And did you see the guys' faces when he turned around and said the ages of his kids? 10, 11, 15 and 20. What? I'm wondering, are they all by the same person? Quite a big gap. But boy, wow, that's a brood. But 20? So that means he had his child at 20. Because if he's 40, you do the maths. Then we had Jordan, who's 29. Can't remember what he does. He's very much a mummy's boy. Yeah, as we saw on the VT. Very much a mummy's boy. She's a single parent. She brought him and his sister up all by herself. She's someone he looks up to. And he likes the whole thing around family. And his nan played a big part in the family. Unfortunately, she's passed away, but you do see him getting very tearful when he talks about her. She had a great impact on his upbringing in some way or another. He's also very much a boy's boy. Well, we saw him singing karaoke with the boys, doing what boys do. Yeah. So he likes to have fun. I'm sure he's a football fan as well. Something makes me say that. But anyway, lastly, we had Duka. I like Duka. But you know what? The minute he spoke, I said to myself, he hangs around with black people. This is my assumptions, by the way. I'm not 100% sure, but I have a feeling. It was a twang in his voice, the slang. I thought, yeah. And then when he talked about being bullied at school, being an immigrant from Yugoslavia, I believe. He came here when he was 10 years old and he was bullied at school in regards to his hair, his accent, etc. And I thought to myself, yeah, we as black people, we will take you under our wing because we know how that feels. Fast forward, we then find out who the first two couples are to be wed. So we had Duka and Whitney. Oof. I don't know where they were going with these two. Duka and Whitney. Whitney. We saw Whitney's story. Her story was she lost her mother. Didn't say how old she was when she lost her mother. But she lost her mother via a car crash. And I'm presuming that Auntie played a big part in raising her thereafter. So that's already a sad story to begin with. But then I look at the attitude and I think, where has this behaviour come from? I don't want to blame it on the family. I don't want to do that. I'm going to presume it has something to do with you losing your mother. Why your attitude is the way it is. Because it stinks. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. She was saying that people misjudge her. Let me see if I can remember the words she used, how people describe her. They saw her as cold, cocky, arrogant, rude, and a bitch. I'll say it again. Cold, cocky, arrogant, rude, and a bitch. Why would you not think they would look at you that way? I don't know why you would not think that. From the time you come off with that energy to start with, of course we're going to view you the same way. Because they've already got the first impressions. First impressions stick with the majority. And you wonder why. Poor Duka has his work cut out. He really does. Anyway, I'm going to fast forward to what they both were looking for in their partners. Duka was looking for somebody with nice eyes, a smile, a bum, and fiery, with a backbone. Oh, yes, He asked for fiery with a backbone. I don't think he realises how much he's going to have to work for this one. Yeah, he asked for too much. He did. And I don't know who to blame here. I really don't. Now, when it came to Whitney, her requirements were somebody tall, dark and handsome, with big muscly legs, big shoulders, a big beard, and prides themselves in their appearance. So everything about her is all about the aesthetics. Never mind the personality. Talk about surface level. Moving on. The second couple that were paired off were Jordan and Shanita. Now, these two together look like a couple. Matchmakers, you've done a good job on these two. I'm hoping they can make it to the end because they look like they were meant to be. Now, in regards to Shanita's story, she was raised by a single parent, her mother, and her mother had her at the very young age of 16. Her father didn't play a part in her life, but the mother moved on into another relationship that I'm presuming was abusive, and it became very toxic within the household that mother and daughter were at loggerheads with each other. Yeah, that's what I gathered from what she was saying. So they had friction for many years. Eventually, once the guy was out the picture, they came back together and built on what they had lost. So the two of them are the very best of friends, as we saw. And looking at the mother, you can tell that she's had a hard life. Just something about the face tells a story. And with all that happening within her life, she went on to become a social worker to help people in the same predicament that she probably was in. So that mapped her career. Now, in relation to what these guys were both looking for, Jordan was looking for the girl next door, somebody not full of makeup, not false looking, has a good heart, is caring, and also fun. And then with Shanita, I think that's how you pronounce it properly, Shanita. She's looking for somebody caring, loving, with a nice smile and nice eyes. So they're not looking for too much. The aesthetics aren't the biggest deal breaker on here. I like this breakdown of what they're looking for. Realistic. Fast forward. I'm not even going to touch on when they break the news to their parents because that's always baffled me. Because with all these cameras in your house, are you trying to tell me that you didn't know this was coming? That there wasn't a shock involved? Yeah, I'm not falling for it. Moving on to the wedding day. Our first couple to tie the knot were Jordan and Shanita. We saw Shanita getting dressed for the wedding. In her wedding dress, she came out to the audience of her mum. Her mum was overwhelmed with tears for her only daughter getting married. I can understand that. I have one daughter myself, so I know how I'd feel if I was in the same position. But moving forward, we also saw Jordan getting dressed. What a mess he was making. Did you see him with the ironing board? It's like he's never ironed in his life. And his mum was sitting there just watching him do it all. And I thought, wow, okay, mummy, let him do it. He's a big boy now. He was fighting to iron his shirt. He got a few marks on there and complained to his mum about them. But eventually, that was sorted. He was in his full attire. Tie, waistcoat, jacket, trousers. Good to go. So we saw him arrive at the church walked down the aisle looking very handsome, very dapper, and he said hello to everyone. Now, that's what I call manners. There's some Married at First Sight episodes that I've seen where people do not say hello to the congregation. I think to myself, were these people dragged up? Do they not know manners? But in this case, this guy has been raised well. You walk into a room, you say hello. Simple. We then saw everybody waiting in anticipation for the bride to arrive. She eventually arrives with her mum, walking her down the aisle. Everybody takes a gasp, and it's like the anticipation carries on until she's near enough at arm's length to touch him. And then he turns around and he smiles. He's happy with what's in front of him. He's got a nice smile, nice eyes, nice body, as he said. But he's liking what he sees. So this is already a good start. And they broke the ice by asking each other's name. Well, I think she asked his name. He gave her a hug. And that was a nice start already. I'm liking this. This here, I'm liking. We then saw them exchange their vows. Both of them had a fun personality in what they wrote. So that was ticking the boxes already. And then when the lady told them they could kiss, would you like to kiss your wife? He said 3, 2, 1, and they both went in. Nice little peck on the mouth, and that was it. They walked off, had their photographs done. They were very natural, asking all the questions they need to ask. And again, as Shanita was saying, you're already ticking some of my boxes. So that was already a good start. Moving on to the reception. We saw them both enter the reception hall, hand in hand, arm in arm, I can't remember. But touching each other, let's put it that way. Everything looked very pretty. Sat down at the top table. Him next to his mum and her next to her bridesmaids, I believe. Because I don't think the mum was sitting at the top table. No, she wasn't. Yeah. But coming from that, you saw Jordan get up and speak to his friends. And then you saw Jordan's mum and Shanita looking very nervous, like to say, is this our time to talk? So you saw them start talking. They were very hesitant to start with, but they soon warmed up to each other. The mum had some very kind words to say to her. And she did say about her son could be very fussy. And Shanita said the same thing. She can be fussy too. But she saw these two as a good pairing. She was a little nervous, she said, knowing that he was getting married in this way. But the way the matchmakers have matched these guys, she's feeling much more relaxed. And Jordan, as we saw, was watching from a distance these two talk. Seeing that his mum looked very relaxed, he said to himself, this is good. This is good. I can see my mum's liking her. So this is a good sign. Yeah. Moving forward, we then saw the mother of the bride recite a speech. Starting with, my beautiful little lady. I'm not going to say the words because I think I'm going to burst out crying. Loved it. Loved the speech. Had me in floods of tears. And the rest of the guests, as well as her daughter. Next, it was Jordan's turn. He started on a high note. And then when he started talking about his nan, he got emotional. He had to take a minute. We then saw his wife, Shanita, go up, ask him whether he's okay, and gave him a big hug. Now that's how you begin a marriage. supporting each other. And when Jordan's mum saw that, that was just the icing on the cake that she needed. The reassurance she needed that this was the right woman for him. He then proceeded to carry on his speech with a little laugh and a joke behind it. And that was the end of their reception. And last but not least, when they arrived at their hotel, he carried her over the threshold, plonked her on the bed, and then they proceeded to eat the wedding cake. And they enjoyed every minute of it, laughing, joking, making fun of themselves, while spooning. The cake, that is. That was a nice wedding. Very nice wedding. Now, on to the next. We had Duka and Whitney. Oh dear, I'm not looking forward to this. My blood was boiling watching this last night. Absolutely boiling. However, she did look pretty in her dress. I'll give her that. And he looked very handsome in his suit. We saw Whitney with her auntie getting ready, and they were talking about her mum not being here. She got a little emotional, which is understandable. But then there's this other side of her that really grates on me. I'm trying to be positive. I am. Then we saw Duka and his dad. His dad is cute. I like his dad. Very warm, gentle person. And yeah, you saw him and his dad hug. And his dad wishing him well, etc. We then saw Duka arrive at the wedding venue. And as he's walking down the stairs, he greeted everyone. And rightly so. We also saw two members of the bridal party say something like, "He's a bit of her." Something like that, they said. And I'm thinking, I hope he is. I hope he ticks her boxes. Because it's going to be messy if he doesn't. She finally arrives. And when we saw her walk down the stairs, she said something like, "I'm not going to settle for anything less than perfect." That's what she said. This girl is delirious. Delusional. I don't know what other word you can use, but this girl is not tapped right. As she said, she's looking for someone that's shaped like a brick house. A brick house, you know. She's looking more for an Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's the type of look. Very muscly, but tall with it. Mr. Duka is 6'2", as we found out, and it's not tall enough. Yep, not tall enough. And she wonders why she's still single. When Duka finally turns round and sees her, he's thinking, what a pretty girl. He's thinking he's won the lottery. And then she opens her mouth. And he finds out that all that glitters isn't gold. The amount of facial expressions I saw within that ceremony was uncountable. This girl was an embarrassment. All you saw was her looking up the ceiling, looking to the side, rolling her eyes, pulling faces. It was embarrassing. I wanted to jump into the TV and choke the shit out of her. She was just too feisty. She said something along the lines of something about, is it too late to run? Poor Duka's face. The poor guy. And you could see his side of the family squirming, thinking, who is this girl? The poor dad felt embarrassed for his son. You could see it. Who the hell would want to get married to that? Yes, that. In her words, she's cold, cocky, arrogant and rude. And let's not forget, she's an itch. If I was there, I would have said, Duka, run! Run for your life! Because this isn't it! Moving on, you then saw them exchange their vows. Duka recited his vows first. Lovely speech. I don't recall her saying thank you. I don't recall that. Then she recited her vows. And behind it, he said, very nice, very nice. He liked it. All the time, keeping a smile on his face. But all we ever saw from her was a snarl, the curling of the lips, the rolling of the eyes, the feistiness, the rudeness, and the list goes on. I just don't have any words. I have no words. We then saw the exchanging of the rings. And when it came to him putting the ring on her finger, we saw a pause. She didn't want to give him her hand for him to do that. The attitude came out all over again. I can't with this girl. I just can't. I just can't. Oh, don't let her cross my path. Please. Don't let her cross my path or anyone like her. Eventually, she did give him her hand. And she was just... Oh, I can't even describe how the whole thing went. It just wasn't acceptable. The ring didn't fit properly, so she made an issue about that. Then he said something else, and she had a flippant remark behind that. Then he said something else, and another flippant remark. Shut your mouth! Shut your mouth! That's what I wanted to say. When it came to exchanging kisses, she wasn't up for it. She wasn't interested. Mr. Duka had to say, I'll kiss you on both cheeks. And she accepted that. When leaving to walk back down the aisle, these two were very separate. They weren't touching each other. She was not interested. And then when it came to having their photographs taken, again, she was not accommodating. Photographer told her to hold hands. She just about did that. When it came to asking her for them to kiss, she wasn't interested. Not in the slightest. Fast forward to the reception. Again, you saw these two coming separately. Him in front of her. She was dragging her feet. She didn't want to be near him. Not really. And then you saw them sit down at the top table. She introduced her auntie to him. And he was very nice. He said, very nice to meet you. Then when it came to him introducing his dad to her, I didn't hear a peep come out of her mouth. Not one word. You know what? I just need to fast forward. I'm just getting agitated. I'm getting agitated. And then when you saw her go to speak to her friend and complaining about everything about him is not quite her type. And then when you saw them discussing his name, they couldn't remember his name. I just want to choke this girl. I want to choke her. We also saw Duka and his dad talking, and his dad was praising him on his etiquette, his behaviour, and what a good standing man he was, that type of thing. But then he started to criticise Whitney. He just couldn't understand her behaviour. That's really what I'm trying to say. Duka was still trying to defend her, even after all of her feistiness. But the dad wasn't accepting of it. He said, no, no, no. You've both been put in the same position, marrying a stranger. But you can hold yourself in such a way, and this lady here, no. Unacceptable. That's really what he was saying. We then saw a scene with Duka and Whitney on the top of the balcony, talking. And I think this was the first time I saw a different side to her. She was very empathetic, sympathetic. I saw a different Whitney. Whenever she talks about her mum, she gets emotional. You see the softer side of her. But how long will it last? That's my question. Duka could relate to her at that point with her softness. But again, I ask, how long will this last? Well, we didn't have to wait long. Once they got to their hotel and walked through those doors and she saw the love heart petals on the bed, that's the first thing she aimed for. She brushed them off the bed. She said, no, we won't be doing any of that. That's virtually what she said. She wasn't having any of it. And when she was speaking to the cameras, she said something along the lines of, do we have to share a bed? Even my dog doesn't share my bed. That's what she said. Even her dog doesn't share her bed. So what's she trying to say? That he's a dog? Lower than a dog? How dare you? She feisty, you see? The girl too damn feisty. My boy had to sleep on the couch. Yes, on the couch. I'm not living on hope for these two. No way in hell. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. I've got nothing more to say. So this is where I'm going to leave it. If you like what you heard, please like, comment and subscribe. Till next time.